WWTD this week. I'm out here on site. As you can see, we got foundation forms set for my own house, my own new house that we're building. And it's a pretty big foundation job. A lot of excavation went into clearing this lot, and we still got quite a bit to go because we got to put a pool behind the foundation. There's a big pile of dirt and tarp over it right now for erosion control. But hey, what I want to talk about this week is something that I think a lot of you have probably thought about or you've done in terms of kind of climbing the real estate ladder with the types of projects that you're doing. And so generally the way people mature in this business or grow is you start doing renovations within the existing square footage of a home that you're buying to flip. Then you graduate to doing add-on square footage, right? You add on. Generally, that's best to do in areas where maybe you get 300, 400, 500 a foot on up, even 200 a foot sometimes, depending on what you're doing. But you're adding on for 100, 120, 130 a foot, something like that, depending on how difficult the add-ons are and how much additional in between labor and weird stuff you've got going on. So what you do is you're basically arbitraging the cost to build versus the value of the additional livable square footage. And so you arbitrage the difference in the cost per actual square foot to build versus per square foot you add of livable square footage on the retail market. And so that's how people tend to make pretty big spreads on these add-on type gigs. Well, so you do that for a while, and then you figure out that it's hard to scale that business. When you start doing add-on rehabs, it's just really hard to scale because it's super time intensive in terms of the management, in terms of the in-between labor, in terms of just all the problems that pop up, all the challenges. Every day has a new list of challenges and things like that that come along with these add-on type projects. So then the next step is getting into the world of new construction. Now, some markets are friendlier for it than others in terms of permitting and lag time. So sometimes you're forced to do the add-on stuff versus new construction just because of the municipalities that you're dealing with, and they make it really difficult to do new construction. Now, if you're in one of those markets where you can find a part of that market that's higher price point, higher dollars per square foot, and it's reasonable in terms of being able to build new construction. And most markets are that way. I'm talking about, maybe some really difficult coastal communities, and maybe San Francisco, I know, has some challenges and spots, things like that. But most markets, you can build new construction. Once you figure out how to lay the tracks, you can just rinse and repeat. So as you can see here, foundation is kind of a big thing that a lot of people get held up on in terms of graduating to that next step of actually building new construction. They just don't know a whole lot about, the excavation, who you use for it, the pricing, all that stuff. But once you lay the tracks, you figure that out, you then learn that you can scale the new construction business much, much easier than you can with the add-on square footage business. And it just becomes a lot simpler business to run. It becomes much more like a conveyor belt because you have certain subs, boom, 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 boom. It's easy to schedule because you know approximately how long each sub's going to be in there. When you're doing the add-on stuff, you have, different challenges and problems that pop up every day that screw up your schedule, and then you got to reschedule all the people behind it, and usually some guys can't make it, so then it pushes out other guys, and then you end up holding the property for a lot longer than you would like to, and nothing goes seamlessly. With new construction, you can seamlessly schedule a lot easier. That's not to say you don't have some challenges too, but it becomes much more like a conveyor belt operation, and it then becomes a lot easier to scale. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, that's why most people, as they graduate and they go from remodeling existing square footage to adding on square footage, eventually they all land at building new construction, because once they do it once and they lay the tracks and they figure out how to do it in their market, they realize that it's so much easier to scale, it's so much easier to manage, and you can also, generate a lot more money for the time vested, the money vested, and the capital that you're pushing around a lot of times. So instead of taking that, 700 square foot house and making it a 1,200 square foot house, maybe you just nuke the 700 square foot house and you build a 3,000 square foot house in its place. And the amount of work to build that 3,000 square foot house is really, probably the same as it just adding on 500 square feet in terms of management, but you're able to make a lot more money and hit a much higher price point most of the time. So that's just kind of a blanket example. But point is that if you want to be able to scale the bigger margin projects, and this kind of goes back to last week's podcast episode, new construction is generally where most people land because they realize that it's hard to scale when you're just doing the add-on type projects. Now they're good for, doing one here and doing one there and making a great margin. But if you really want to scale your business and do a lot more projects, it's just a lot harder to do that. It's much easier to do new construction. So that's why we landed on it. And that's why, this is another example of it here where I'm building my new house. So hopefully that gives you guys some insight into a little deeper into the art of the six-figure deal we talked about last week. But it also kind of explains, why we do what we do and why we love new construction so much. So as I always say, I may not walk on water, but today I'm walking on my own job site. I'll see you guys next week.